a lot. Amid the celebrity allure of entrepreneurship, many exceptional entrepreneurs remain shadowed. Here, I team up with these hidden talents to unveil their challenges and successes. Dive in with me to unearth entrepreneurial gems, learn from our experiences, and get educated.
Yeah, I think as we've grown with really awesome mentors, one of the most valuable pieces of advice was you can't drive the bus if you're sitting on the bus, right? So we've always known what we do best and where our shortcomings are as humans, as individuals, and as that contributes to the business. And we've been very comfortable, as I was saying, building a team around us who do what they do best. So whether it's, ops or finance or HR, things that sometimes not only that we don't necessarily enjoy spending our time doing, but that we're not as good as somebody that we can bring in to do it. And Mandy and I are really, really clear about what we do really well. And that's been the contributing factors to the success of the company from the beginning. She makes really, really good food, and I'm really good at branding and design. And if we're not focused on those two things and spending time doing things that are not contributing to the company because there's people that could do it better than us, then we're failing. So we're very clear about that, and we look at a series of meetings, and we're really good at that now at the beginning of the week. And if any of those meetings don't contribute to those elements of Mandy and my talents, then it's not beneficial for the company, and it's not beneficial for Mandy and I. So we're very clear about the way that we spend our time and the value that we bring to the company. And we we now, I feel so blessed to say this, but we get to spend time doing what we love to do and what we're good at doing. And I think that that's a part of the success.
Love, love, love what you're just saying there. And anybody who's listening, this should rewind about 68 seconds and listen to it again, because I so often get people who'll call me and they'll either they'll ask ultimately the question surrounds itself around, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, and what's your best piece of advice? And my the first words out of my mouth are always, you have got to get clear on what you want. Clarity is the most important thing, and if you don't have it, you will end up doing something that you ultimately don't want to do. And so, do you mind just sharing, because there's a lot of push pull in business, and no matter what size the business, there's a lot of push pull. But when you're growing a business the way you guys have, especially 2015 to 24, you've got 15 locations. That's not just a little bit of growth. So how have you guys, how did you set your clarity, or how did you get clear? What was the process? What was the advice you were given? What advice or process could you give to our listeners? Because I think this is so, 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 so critical. And it's amazing to be able to see someone who owns a business, who's growing a business the way you are, be able to maintain that. Because a lot of times, even if people get there, they'll go, okay, well, we're going to grow, so I'll just going to go off and I'll do all this operational stuff, and we'll get these restaurants open, or whatever their business is, and they'll be like, then I'll come back to this, and they just really never come back, or they spend 60% of the time doing something they don't like, and only 40% of the stuff they do like doing. So, what's the split for you? What advice?
I think it's what you said. The most important thing is to be clear on what it is that you're doing in this journey. What are you good at? What do you bring to the table in terms of its success? And if you're just putting pieces together and bringing in other people to fit the puzzle, then where are you contributing? Like, what do you do? Yeah, what do you do to contribute to the future of this? And I think figuring that out is the number one important thing. And it's hard because at the beginning you can't necessarily afford to bring in a team of people that are coming in for finance and ops, et cetera, et cetera. And at the very beginning, we first noticed it was a problem that we were on this hamster wheel of, doing our own books and like we're sitting there just doing like accounting at the beginning, and that's not helpful for the company. And that was a big light bulb that went off, that we're not going to grow if we're doing things that we're not good at doing and that we don't like doing. So it was amazing at the time. Vince's brother, who was an amazing accountant came and he helped us at the beginning just sort of organize our books, and that was the first time that we allowed somebody to come in with that expertise in the finance department, and that helped us tremendously. And then we realized that, look, we need to start bringing in other people, even if it was part-time at the very beginning, because we couldn't afford, that were going to help us with the stuff that wasn't contributing to the growth. And if Mandy and I are doing stuff that we're not good at doing, it's, you know, that it wasn't going to work. So yeah, we saw that very early on.
Was there a specific strategy where you like listed out, hey, here's the 15 jobs inside the business, and here's the 10 we hate doing, and here's the 5 we like doing, or and then like let
No, the our org chart was very organic at the beginning. I would say that we probably, hiring, the first thing was hiring managers, and then hiring a district manager. Sorry, finance came in there before then, I would say. But in my industry, in the restaurant industry, yeah, it was really the people that were leading the locations that were responsible for their own KPIs. um, that was very helpful to have them responsible. So at a management level and district management, and then working on our finance team was also paramount importance at the beginning. And then slowly it just grew organically, and we brought in incredible talent from outside while mixing with people that have been with us. And yeah, now we have an amazing team. We hired a president, actually. I think it's going to be 2 years in March, and that was transformative in so many ways for the company, but also for Mandy and I personally. It's sort of been a dream come true. I think when you have good people leading with you, it's a gift.
I want to talk about the selection of the president because I think that's really, really key, obviously, because you just said that because it's a gift. When did you guys get your first mentor or hire your first coach, or have you? I'm actually making an assumption that you have. I feel like I recall we had a conversation in the past about that, but I may be wrong. But what did you, and if so, when?
The first time we brought in someone from the outside was when we started realizing that we couldn't have as much physical impact in the restaurants because we were only two people, and that we needed a robust training program. So we went to an outside consultant for that, and it was extremely beneficial. It was someone that had a lot of experience in retail and growth and strategy, and that was the first time that we brought in someone outside for coaching. And since then, we've used dozens and dozens, and we were firm believers in constant information and growth in that way. We also are only, so Mandy and I are 50-50 in the company still. And the only financing that we've gotten to grow is through BDC, which, for anybody listening, if you're Canadian, they are unbelievable to work with as a Canadian institution. And they love helping, small to every size company. And they believed in us from the very beginning. But all that to say, they had a lot of internal programs also that they would help us with. There's a lot of female-run company grants that they provide, incredible programs for coaching. There's a lot of money for women through BDC. Um, yeah, we did a lot of programs with BDC, and then so many other awesome agencies around Canada.
Yeah, I'll say, you know what, their BDC does a really good job. We've worked with them in the past. um, Number one, number two. So I would echo that for sure. Number two, I would say like there is money out there for everybody. Depending on your industry, depending on gender, depending on whatever, um, and I don't think a lot of people really take advantage
Tap
of
in
what
enough.
is out there. Different job grants and all that kind of stuff. A little bit of research goes a long way, and of course, now that with Chat GPT and all that kind of stuff, research got is infinitely easier than it used to be. But if you are own a business, like it is worth your time to go out and see, what is available to your industry, because there are some really really good offerings for support with startups or expansions or all kinds of stuff like that. So yeah, thank you for bringing
I
that up.
couldn't agree
Yeah,
more.
it's really critical. Um, so was it difficult? Last question about the coach, mentor, or the consultant you hired. Was it difficult for you guys to bring somebody in? Like, what was that process like for you? Because I know I've talked to a lot of people and they feel like they have to do it by themselves. And whether it's ego or whether it's fear because they're not gonna, they don't know or they're not enough, whatever. How difficult was that for you to?
I don't know. Sometimes I feel Mandy and I are weirdos. It was the best thing ever. We've no regrets about anybody that's ever come in, and we haven't had any bad experiences. I mean, sometimes it'll go off and it'll derail in terms of culture a little bit, but aside from that, if we rein it in, yeah, it's all learning, right? You kind of can't go wrong, and obviously within boundaries, and you don't want somebody coming in and really shaking up, something that's not part of your strategy or vision. But generally speaking, when the mandate's fairly clear, it's really beneficial for the company. I'd highly recommend it.
It's what I love about you is like you have like no ego. You guys are so successful. You've done such an amazing job. And I don't mean success by making money. I just mean like what you've done with the brand, how unique it is, where you've placed it in the market, um, how you've grown it, and I don't mean again the restaurants. I just mean the brand and the product and the offer and the servicing, and it just is
Thank you.
such a great job. It it's not very often that you come across business owners who have that sense of clarity and have that vision and are, you know egoless and open to, hey, yep, what do you got? Like, I'm interested in having any conversation. I'm interested in learning. Like, where did that come from for you? And was it learned or was it or
I
was
don't
it
know. Just learning is power, right? It's like that's always our mentality around it. And I think I don't know, Mandy's one of the most beautiful souls inside and out, and probably the most humble person also. And I think I feed off that from her. I think we're both very like aware of our strengths and weaknesses, and that's how we approach business also. I think we've both done a lot of work on ourselves, and there's just generally a lot of self awareness there. And I think awareness has to come before anything, especially in leadership and decision making. You have to take the ego out, right? So nothing gets accomplished.
Mhm. But not a lot of people. I mean, it's like it's amazing. Where I think an awareness is absolutely key, and it is very tough. I mean, I know for me that it's been a massive learning over time. Um, to separate the ego, and I don't mean macho ego, but I just mean like you're just separating your ego from you know, and being able to be that aware to where your opportunities lie and what you're good at, what you're not good at. Um, and it's just I'd be really really curious if where the struggles,
If it's
yeah,
learned or
well,
if
it's
it's
learned, but and then where have you struggled with it, like this? Because there's always this yin and yang, right? It's like, or to me there's the you know there's yin and yang, there's two-sided coin, there's the silver lining around every cloud, whatever saying you want to participate with but it's there's a push and pull so often. You want to be employee centered and love and connection, but then there's sometimes they just frustrate you or piss you off so much, and you're just like, how do I maintain this? And like, and I know it's a spirited woman. Like, I mean, I don't know if I would want to get an argument with you. It's like you're loving, you're caring, you're super compassionate, and like you're so much, very much like my wife Tennille. Like, she's so loving and she's so caring. She's the last fucking person that I want to get in an argument with. Like, because she's smart and super articulate, and she just doesn't take no for an answer. And I know you're like that. So where does that in the awareness side, what's the battle been like, if there has been one?
just about boundaries and being assertive. I'm like, I think the kids get my crazy the most. I don't really show it at work very much. Not that I'm uncomfortable with conflict. I wouldn't say that. It's definitely been a struggle for me. Um, I don't love conflict, and it hasn't been the best for me in business. I think I could speak for both Mandy and I. We don't like conflict, and sometimes it's not worked in our favor, and boundaries have been pushed, and we've been sometimes taken advantage of because of that. And I wish that I could flex as much assertiveness that I do at work that I do at home. Sorry, or vice versa. But I don't know what the question is, but I think that's been actually a big struggle for me in terms of my own growth and development is having more boundaries and being more assertive at work for sure with different relationships, especially at high levels. But I think when push comes to shove, if it's something that's really goes against our core, or I can speak for myself, is fundamentally wrong, that's where my buttons get pushed, and then I will have the conflict for sure. But yeah, radical feedback is not something that I'm always comfortable with. That I know is really the key to building good relationships and for developing people, and it's something that I'm working on myself with for sure.
But I do love that the boundary that you have, which is that, listen, if it's in conflict to
It's a very high
if
threshold.
it's in, there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's like, I mean, that exercise and flexibility is not something I had when I was younger, and I probably, some people would say, I certainly don't have it at a high level, but I'm way more flexible than I used to be. Um, and it's cost me. Inflexibility has cost me. And it just, but it feels like, you know, would I be right in the assumption that it sounded to me like it's tied to your vision and the clarity of that vision? And once that line has been crossed, it's like, okay, we're, now you're going to step up and step forward. And
Yes.
that's what it is.
Yeah, but I don't sweat the small stuff. Exactly. Everything in between, I don't get upset over, and yeah, I try to take ego completely out of it, unless it's something that exactly as you said is like screwing with the vision or yeah.
Yeah.
I generally like people to be able to feel like they can fly, and I don't like squashing people's lights. And I feel sometimes that in engaging in a conflict, you can squash someone's light, and that's always something I'm really conscious of and aware of to make people feel like they can shine and they can grow.
Let's talk about the president.
Yeah.
I'm curious in like what A led to it, and B, kind of, I think you said it was a gift. And so how does
Oh,
that gift
such a
showing up,
gift.
and what does it feel like, and how does it look? And
So up until we hired her, we have hundreds of employees at the company. We have a growing executive team and head office staff, and we had a flatline structure in the company, and everybody was reporting into Mandy and I, essentially. And not only was it not engaging or inspiring for our entire head office team because we didn't have the bandwidth or the expertise in a lot of the different departments to develop people, inspire people, be strategic enough for everybody, and so that was one part of it. And we also wanted to keep focusing on what Mandy and I are good at, and we found that we were just being bogged down on a daily basis in terms of time management. As I was saying, engaging in different departments of the company that just weren't beneficial or contributing to its success. So we said, let's go out and find the right person who could do this for us. And it was extremely scary. We've never given so much control to anyone ever. Um, and the interviewing process was arduous. We used a third party amazing agency here in Montreal that was referred to me actually through YPO contacts. The best move we've ever made. She's a woman, she's a mom, she's brilliant, she's compassionate, she's driven, and she's aligned our team like never before. It's really it's awe inspiring to watch her work.
so, a couple thoughts on that. You had mentioned that the org chart was pretty flat and everybody was reporting. You obviously would have had some options at that time. Hire a chief of staff. I'm assuming you have some type of, chief operating officer or a director of operations, or
Yeah, so we had a bunch of C suites already. We just didn't have some, but we didn't. But even that was just not. Sorry, I interrupted you.
no, 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 no. I love it. Keep going.
Yeah,
So,
so we didn't, but all of those people were reporting into Mandy and I, and we still didn't feel like that was beneficial for them or for us or for the
got it,
company.
got it. So what? Just out of curiosity and real quick, and I don't want to get into the details, but like, from a C-suite standpoint, who reports up? Do you have probably a chief of marketing or a head marketing person, a head operations person, HR? What am I
Yeah,
missing?
exactly. So there's HR, there's food, there's ops, there's CFO. I'm not thinking right now, but all the big buckets are there. Yeah.
Your cadence was regular meetings with the C suites, and it just was like, oh, this is too much. We need to put somebody in place.
We also wanted people to be held not accountable to a strategy, but Mandy and I, at the end of the day, we're really artists, right? So we've been on this learning journey. I feel like I've gone to university since we started this company, and we've learned so much as well. But we wanted someone to help us make our vision into a tangible strategy that was measurable and bring all of the pieces into place that needed to make it happen and bring everybody on board into that strategy and hold everyone accountable. And that's what she's doing.
And what was
And they're so grateful.
what your C suite?
Well, yeah, people wanted more. They were hungry for growth, for vision, for all of it. And Mandy and I were just like continuing with our dream every day, that we were doing, but it wasn't I don't think I don't want to say it was clear enough. We're always clear, but there wasn't a tangible strategy that was easy for them to work with.
And so, do you think that's like? Would you shape that in the form of like the the leadership, like having the one person that's leading the charge, that's holding people accountable, that's having the conversations, that's you know providing the I refer to it as the battle rhythm of that's the kind of the word that I've
Oh, I
kind
like
of
that.
picked up, which is that just constant battle rhythm of it's like we have a friend we have friends and their daughter is I forget what they call the actual position, but she sits in front of the sculling kayak rowers, and they're just basically like stroke, 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 and they're just keeping that continued battle rhythm. you know, it's like beating a drum, boom, boom. And so it's just doesn't have to be boom, 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 but it's just constant, consistent path forward. You know, is that kind of I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's kind of what I was perceiving.
Absolutely, absolutely. And she's also very inspiring, and she brings people in. She has a huge element of transparency in the way that she leads, which I think is also really engaging for people, and really bringing people on board and being very clear about steps going forward and how everyone can contribute to that and how everyone can see themselves in that dream and in that vision. And very clear trajectories for people's career paths if they do want that. And yeah, and she's a master communicator, and everyone is has never been more aligned, I would say, in the history of the company for sure.
What was the selection process like? There's so many people, like as you were sharing, like just the attributes of this person. Um, there's so many. The beautiful thing about what I'm doing here is like I get to talk to so many business people, whether they're like listeners that are giving us feedback um, and people I know in business, and it's kind of like the center of my world, right? It's but the there's so many people that I know that really need to bring somebody like this into their business, and whether the title is something different, whatever, but somebody to stand between the entrepreneur or the artist, because so many businesses start with art, like excuse me, with artists. There's so many businesses that start with artists, um, that have a passion in an industry or if the product or whatever it is, or a service, and they take they're the artist leader, but they are not the best of manager leaders or entrepreneurial leaders. Where they're out taking the risk and really like stretching it. So she obviously sounds like a manager leader. You guys are obviously artist leaders. Um, what was the process like for you guys to be able to find the person that fit for you? Because I think there's so many entrepreneurs and business owners out there that they don't know how to bring this person in. They don't know what to look for. They don't know how to quantitate it. They don't know how to put like what the attributes are that they're looking for in this person as a leader. And they have a lot of fear around, it not working out. What if it doesn't work out? What if my people leave me? What if the strategy isn't you know, carried out? How do I integrate them into our business? How do I integrate them into our life, into our leadership philosophy and vision? Sorry, I went on a lot there. So I just, but I'm
No, it's
curious,
great.
like, I'm
That's what
just
it, yeah.
curious what that was for you guys, because you said at the very beginning, that was really scary.
Oh, terrifying. I mean, it could, yeah. Mostly for our team, obviously. We wanted to make sure that it was the right fit culturally before the first and foremost had to be the right fit. And it's really a scary process because I mean, how much you're doing 3 interviews, maybe you're going for lunch with this person, you're hoping that all the references make sense, but really you're making this massive life change for the company, and you don't really know until you really know, right? And I would say probably a couple months in, and the best part of the way that she onboarded was that she came in and she just listened, and she didn't come in guns a-blazing, and she didn't come in with all of her ideas. She just wanted to learn and listen, and that, I think, was essentially how she got the buy-in of our team. And she cared, and she still really cares, and I think there's an authenticity there that was ever present the minute she walked in the door, and that's ultimately more than all of her accolades and experience and skill set was the most important for sure. And yeah, it's a very scary thing, and you don't really know. You have no idea, but you're hoping that what's around the corner, the reason that you went to go source this person, is going to be better than what it is, or for the reason it's better than the situation that you're in, and why you're going to do it. So you're hoping that it's going to be good, and you have to believe in the person also. And it's a little bit uncomfortable, and it is weird, and I'll never forget the day that she took the lead. I think it was after a few months. She said, from tomorrow or something, all of these people will now be reporting to me. And I remember getting off the phone and calling Mandy, and I'm like, what? Like, this is the scariest feeling that we've ever had. But it's been such a gift. I've never been more focused and inspired in terms of what I love to do in the company more, just having all of that weight lifted off. And I can speak for Mandy, the same. Like, we both just feel like we have so much more bandwidth to focus on and do what we love doing. So it's been win on both sides for sure.
What did that process look like? Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to get super granular, but I also don't want to skim over it too much, because I do think this is I can't recall having this conversation with anybody else on the podcast about, putting in a president, and just in exactly the same kind of environment, or, well, not exactly, but a similar environment that you guys are in, that, we have so many listeners that are, you know, in and around, probably your revenue, size of your business. You probably have a little bit more employees than most, but given your industry, um, but you hire a firm, and you can tell the firm if it's good promo for them. But you hire the firm. How critical and essential were they to helping you identify what are we looking for? Like, what was that? Because I think that's the beginning piece. Is people don't want it, don't they hesitate to make these decisions because they can't get clear on what it is exactly they're looking for in a leader that's going to come in and not take over the business, but take charge of that battle rhythm.
Well, it's really interesting actually, because prior to her coming in, I guess you asked me the why, and the why was the reasons that I gave. But we do exercises with BDC all the time, but we had done one with BDC where they came in and sort of did like I want to say an operations audit. We're just sort of like, they spent almost 6 months in the company, sort of figuring out the departments and where the opportunities lay, what we could fix. And a lot of what came out of that specific exercise was that we needed this position. So through that, and through all of the needs of the company, we were really able to carve out and outline like a perfect job description of what the company needed and what Mandy and I really needed. So I would say that working on and being stepping back and looking what the business needs to create a really accurate job description, number one, really important. And then having whoever the agency is that is headhunting for you really get it and feel it and understand and know who we are as founders and who we wanted to work with and what type of person we were looking for. And they did a wonderful job at sort of interviewing Mandy and I to make sure that they really felt what it was that we were looking for in that human.
Interesting.
And they did a great
Yeah.
job. I think there was 3 people at the end.
How many did you have to go through to get to your three?
I mean, it started with dozens and then it was, yeah,
And then
yeah,
you,
it's long.
oh, it's a long, how long did the process take you?
I want to say like at least 6 months, maybe more.
Okay. Yep. That's pretty standard. What were the, so you have three candidates in front of you, probably comes down to two, I'm guessing. And am I right or am I wrong?
Yeah, it was the last two that were the
Yeah,
hardest.
right. So what was the push pull? What were some of the things that made you decide? What were the things that you needed to consider that were distinctions that you'd maybe pass on to, to the listeners and truthfully, selfishly me, to to kind of that really kind of helped you with the clarity of being able to choose.
She got more granular in terms of examples of what she was going to do exactly when she came into the company and what she was going to do 1 year in, 3 years in, 5 years in. And she really went into the weeds and the details and came to us with tangible strategy, even in those interviews. And the other candidate was extremely smart, extremely talented and experienced in our segment of the industry, but was talking a little bit too broad strokes and too high level. And there wasn't enough understanding of how that candidate was going to implement all of the things that they were speaking about in the interviews. So I think that she was able to give us an actual clear snapshot of what she was going to do, was kind of why we went with her in the end.
Nice. Yeah. So ultimately, she met your level for certainty about, what the structure could look like, what could happen,
Hmm.
what the plan could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She got into the weeds during the interview
And then
process.
what about the integration process? Once you've hired her, you kind of put her in for 3 months. Or how long did she just listen for?
I want to say 3 months, 4 months. Yeah. We have a very strong, like, it's like a long rooted culture. We have a lot of employees in the head office that have been there, 10 plus years, and we didn't want to rock the boat. And we wanted her to really grasp all of that and, and be compassionate towards everybody in terms of how she was going to lead them. I mean, she's ultimately coming in as their boss, so they have to like her. Um, so yeah, that took a little bit of time. And then a huge part of her mandate was to create a strong team. So that came with some unfortunate having to let go of some people. And it's always, when you've been in it for too long, you can't get the right perspective. And Mandy and I sometimes, had relationships for a long time that just weren't serving the company anymore. So that was, I mean, sad, but also, I guess, helpful in terms of growing pains to have somebody else to come in from the outside. And she did everything very sensitively, and she just had a lot of emotional intelligence around all the decisions that she wanted our buy-in with. And she was also able to onboard incredible talent and build a team around her now that's a mix of, the old and the new in a very delicate, smart way. Like, everybody that she's brought to the table has been unbelievably amazing. So it's all been very
That's
positive.
awesome. I've been I was going to ask this question earlier, and for whatever reason, I decided to not ask it. There was a point in time in our conversation where I thought, "Oh," and then I'm like, "No, I think no, I don't know why," but I'm going to ask it now because I think it's pretty opportune. Um, what does the day look like for you guys now? Um, what as you've grown the business, what is a day? What are the responsibilities? What does it look like?
It's still a lot of meetings. It's still a lot of meetings, but it's meetings about stuff that has to do with growth. So whether it's real estate meetings, design meetings, like large scale partnerships that we're embarking on, um, it's a lot of meetings. And I still love to go around the actual restaurants and just not do my own audits, but I often will have meetings in the restaurants with people so that I can see what's going on. It's not always easy, and you can't get around everywhere. But it's generally a lot of meetings in my car. We got an office. We had a sort of a loft forever that was being used by everybody, but it wasn't a real office. And we just signed for around 8,000 square feet in the same building, which I'm really excited for. And I get to design and decorate
Oh,
the whole
cool.
thing and make it like a big Mandy's party in there. So I think that's going to be great for everybody because a lot of us were very mobile before in terms of our days. Meetings, kids. I try to be there at least 3 times a week for the kids to drive them to after school activities now, which is like a huge gift and a new thing that I wasn't always able to do since onboarding our president. So that's wonderful. And I tried to turn off my emails and my phone from when I'm with the kids till after dinner. I typically will not be on my phone or on a screen. I try not to be. And then I'll go back to emails at night. I find that's when I'm the most peaceful. I usually do when the kids are sleeping. And I exercise. I try to exercise almost every day. It's a really important part of not only my body and my strength, but my mental wellness. I said I'd been traveling a little bit, so I hadn't exercised in 2 weeks, and it's unbelievable the change that happens in your brain chemistry when you're missing it and then when you do it. So I had a workout this morning and I feel like a new
A
person. So
girl.
that's, yeah, prioritizing just mind and body for sure. And in terms of work, it's still, yeah, it's meetings, but meetings that are meaningful and contribute to the growth right now.
If you don't mind me just asking, how old are your kids now? If you could share with the audience.
5, 8, and 10.
So, I mean, I did want to ask because I want to give perspective to how in it you are at that age, which it's an amazing age. But it's not like your kids are 18, 16, and 15 type of thing. Like you are full hands on, and as is Mandy. But to be able to manage your health and your vitality and continue to work out, continue to spend time with the kids, and 3 days a week is probably that's probably more than what most people do when they have jobs. So it's really powerful, I think, and I think you're a powerful example. Obviously, you wouldn't be on the show, but I mean, I really think you're a powerful example of how to balance this, health and family and relationship and business. What's your structure look like? Do you work out before the kids get up, after they go to school? Do you
After I
after
drop
you
them.
drop them? So do you drop them to school
Yeah.
every day? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Every day.
I didn't know that, but
It's
I had
very
a pretty
important
good
for me.
idea, but I wanted to make sure you said it because
Yeah, the mornings are really important. I feel like it sets the tone for the day and the energy, and trying not to be in a crazy, crazy mood. I find that's when tempers are the highest. But yeah, just trying to set them off with their day with positive energy is it's my goal. It's at least what I try to do every day.
yeah. So you send your kids, take them off to school every morning, then you do your workout and then get into the office. So what time's your office day start?
Office day around 11, I
Okay,
would say.
good. Like I don't take a meeting. Like we've talked about this on the podcast. I've made a change. No, I don't. I kind of lost perspective of time now. I guess it might be more than a couple of years, 2, 3 years actually. I don't start my day until 10 o'clock. Like there's very unlikely you're going to get a meeting with me before 10 o'clock. Like it would have to be unbelievably rare. I wouldn't say I never do it, but I could. I mean, I could probably count in my two hands in a year how often I would have a meeting before 10 o'clock in the morning because,
Yeah. And then there's exceptions. Like I've been in meetings like 8 o'clock started this morning. It generally depends, but it's, yeah, I try to get in what feels good before I get into the headspace of
yeah,
working.
but 80% of your life, you're taking the kids to school every day and you're getting your workout in and then you're getting into the office and capitalizing on your day. And then, 3 days a week, just trying to reiterate this to people to let them know whether you're a woman or you're not a woman, it doesn't matter what your gender is. This is a balanceable process. That
Yeah.
with a little,
I wouldn't say this though for the first 15 years.
yeah, no,
Just
no. Well,
joking.
you're right. I mean,
Not to be
no, no,
discouraging,
no.
but
It's. I mean, we've got to be honest. We have to be true. I mean, there's a lot of people who will say like, well, if you want to have your own business or start your own business, you've got to be insane. Like, like I had asked one guy on the podcast, I said, what's your advice for people who are starting a business? He's like, don't start one. It's like he goes, sorry, I know this is a business podcast, but he's like, don't start a business. And but it's true. I mean, there are some people who need to really consider. It is tough. This is As one of my mentors says, this is a gladiator sport. It doesn't matter what gender you are, like you are in it for the fight, and it is, or for the game, or whatever but it is not going to be easy. And it will be more difficult than it is easy more often. Um, and you have to be prepared for that. But I don't know, it's so rewarding, and it's so, such a beautiful gift. It's hard to, it's easy to get addicted to, for sure. We have to be honest with people about what business is like, but it's possible. And I guess the question I would ask you, because your comment was not for the first 15 years, but if you had to go back and look at it with what you know today, what would be some of the things that you would change in order to be able to maintain a little bit more focus, or capture? Because there's a lot of things I would do differently. What are some of the things you would do differently, if you had the opportunity?
I think I would have made decisions for the company a lot faster and with less fear. And I mean, looking back now, I think we could have moved things a lot quicker. I think our trajectory is very long for where we're at in the company. That's just my own impatience. But I think I would have made a lot more bold moves much earlier on and not as been as fearful for some of the big changes.
Was going to Toronto one of those, like expanding to an outside city?
Oh my God.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I remember having a conversation about that with you, and I'm not going to use the word fear, because I wouldn't say it wasn't fear. It was there was some trepidation in terms of the making that step, and the what ifs, and how are we going to handle it, and the shift, and all that kind of stuff. I'd be curious, if you wanted to share a little bit about how that process went, and how you guys felt about it at the beginning, and then obviously the
For
massive amount of
sure.
success that you've had there.
Yeah, as Montrealers, Toronto's always the big city, right? We're all if you can make it in the big city, then you've made it. So our dream was always to go to Toronto. And we never really had the balls to do it. And then we decided that we were going to bite the bullet and do it right before COVID, and then COVID happened. So that put more spokes in our wheel for a couple of years. And I think it was a blessing that COVID happened at the time because it changed our perspective of where we wanted to open. At the beginning, we just wanted to go like downtown financial district, like lineups out the door every day. And then when COVID hit, everybody was working from home, and that sort of density wasn't even happening in busy downtown areas anymore. So we ended up opening up on Ossington, which is almost an artsy, more of a residential neighborhood because everyone was working at home and it didn't matter. And that ended up being really important for the brand as a decision in terms of location because it was cool and hip and up and coming. And I think I don't know which magazine was it recently that just said that it's like the top 10 streets of all of the world to eat. It's like and it's just beautiful. The architecture is gorgeous. The demographic was right up our alley. And I think that really contributed to the brand success when we first opened to do it there. And certainly, yeah, it was scary and we it was a huge learning curve in terms of operations and training and HR. We had no idea how to operate remotely, and we flew down most of our head office team from Montreal for too long from a budget perspective. But we wanted to make it really, really perfect. And that was the scariest for Mandy and I, is that we weren't going to be able to transport the quality and experience. So we spent a ton of time there and we brought in our key players. And um, I think it worked. I think it was funny. The first night that we opened up there, we put up an Instagram post. It was like one of our staff just like tired, like we ran out of lettuce. Like we couldn't serve dinner because there was that many people in there during the day because we ran out of food the first day, and it was incredible. The success was enormous, and so much so that we weren't able to fulfill our third party partners like Uber at the time because we didn't have enough space. So we ended up starting to open these ghost kitchens right away so that we could service delivery in Toronto also because like people that are coming into the restaurant they want to get their service right away. They don't want to be waiting for all the delivery orders going out. So we decided to just turn off all delivery and prioritize in-house guests and open up ghost kitchens to satisfy delivery
Super
needs.
smart idea.
So that's been really helpful for
Very
us.
smart idea.
Yeah.
Can you share with me the location that you first opened, just so people know where it is in Toronto? And
It's 52
Yeah.
Ossington.
So it's not on the beaten path, like you say. It was not in the financial district. I was actually, remember when you sent me the address, and I was like, "Whew, wow." I mean, not that I'm a downtown guy, but it's not on the beaten path. And what year did you open that?
2022? Yeah, 2022.
I think you're right. And on the other side, it's like it's such a what you do is so hip and it's so unique and it's it's such a special offering that I mean, sure, it would have been very successful in the financial district, but I think it's so cool where you're at. But it wouldn't have been my first choice, and as selecting a restaurant location, and so kudos.
We often find it hard to make that decision whether we want just volume or what is it gonna say for the brand. That's always how we select real estate, and then it ends up being more of a destination, and it benefits the brand more than going into just busy areas.
I mean, I think that's really interesting that you say that. So because a lot of people would make the decision to opt for the sales side. And so, can you just expand a little bit on the thinking when it came to how the brand is represented, how important that is for you guys, and location selection? What's all kind of how do you guys? What's the vision for that?
Yeah, so in Montreal, we've always opened up in more residential, sort of neighborhoody areas. We've never opened up on downtown streets in Montreal. It's always been sort of close to universities or close to a higher socioeconomic demographic in terms of residential proximity and close to cool boutiques. We love being where we always somehow end up being next to Aesop, or there's like specific brands that we know that we have similar visions of in terms of real estate rollout. And Montreal, it's really worked for us to open up in these more niche neighborhoods. So when we went to Toronto, we were so grateful that we ended up introducing the brand through a really cool, vibey street versus, a busy downtown. And we're actually now, we just went on a research trip in Vancouver. So we're hopefully going to be opening up there in the next year or so. And we have the same vision in terms of how do we want to introduce the brand. I think once the brand's already there, it's okay. But for the first one or two locations, it's really important that the site selection is culturally on brand.
What would be the marketing strategy? You select a location. Let's just take Vancouver, for example. And I don't know how far down the road you are with your planning and whatnot, but you're expanding. I think this is an interesting conversation for the listeners that would be looking to expand or looking to start a business in a location somewhere. Um, and the things that you guys take into consideration, and obviously you shared a little bit about that in terms of the demographic and the residential area and that niche kind of cool hip neighborhoods, but in terms of the marketing strategy as you are going into a new city, what are some of the things that you're taking into account, and what would the strategy be? What is the spend? What's the implementation, operational openings, that kind of stuff?
So, in terms of marketing, we as I was saying, we haven't really done any big marketing campaigns paid for. It's really all been through social media, which is insane. And again, really attribute the success of the opening in Toronto to Instagram. It's such a weird thing to say, but it's true. And in looking at our back end metrics for social media, a lot of it's comprised mostly of Montreal and Toronto. So going into Vancouver, we've already evaluated that we're going to be using an actual marketing company to help us there. And I mean, everything from we have a really wonderful partnership with Uber, who we actually did produce a campaign with for Uber in Montreal, where we did billboards and buses and wild postings, and it was really cool. So potentially something like that for Vancouver. And again, I think that the site location speaks volumes, and that's sort of the marketing in and of itself. If we open up in the right location where the right people see us at the very beginning is very impactful.
And how big of a play was I'm going to use the wrong words, but the phantom kitchens or the
Yeah,
ghost
ghost
kitchens? Yeah,
kitchens.
like because well, are
How
you doing that in Montreal? And how?
we just opened up one in Montreal, actually. Yeah, if there's any Montreal listeners, we have another location in Laval. But yeah, we just opened up one
And
now.
typically just for your third party providers of Uber and Uber Eats and Skip the Dishes and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, the ghost kitchen's basically a kitchen. It's a back of house kitchen that you're creating your
Yeah,
offerings, and then that's where your third party providers are going. Kind of backdoorish. There's no
exactly.
storefront, customer
Yep.
interaction walk in. It's just production basically. What kind of percentage of revenue, like say in Toronto, is now being split um, between your storefront locations and a ghost kitchen?
Uber comprises almost, I know in Montreal, it's around half of our business, which is
Wow.
crazy. Yeah, Uber is a big part of our company. Toronto, I don't think the split is as much. I want to say maybe 40 in Toronto.
Still, that is
Yeah,
unbelievable.
but half of our business is delivery. I think the world of delivery transformed through COVID, and I think people that weren't ordering at home, I think that just became a way of life. I mean, it's insane. It's we've even now changed the entire layout and build out of our restaurants in order to accommodate for the flow of drivers in there because that was a problem. So now we always have to have a second door as we look for real estate to make sure that we don't, because having that many drivers in the restaurant during high density lunch or dinner time is not ideal. And yeah, it's a huge part of our business
Yeah,
model now.
I mean, they're in a rush. They're taking space up at your front counter. They're kind of in the way. Like,
Yeah,
I'm not being derogatory to the drivers, but that's what happens. Is like
no,
they're
but
just kind of,
it's yeah,
they're in a hurry. They got to get the food, and they can be a little bit anxious sometimes. And I mean, if you're not in the business, you see it as a customer when you're in a restaurant. When they're there to pick stuff up. So it's smart on you guys. Yeah. Rebecca, I mean, uh, you're a beautiful soul. I mean, I can't emphasize enough, and I would just I think like the sorry, let me finish my statement. I can't emphasize enough like how you epitomize this show in terms of like you and Mandy and what you've done, and coming from an artist background to creating this unbelievably successful brand. Um, well, we never talked about your cookbook, but we'll pitch that at the end. Um, but like you really have, and I want to use the word mastered, but I know like mastery is a process. So I don't mean that in you've gotten to the end game and everything is amazing and congratulations and good for you and shoot off the streamers and all that shit. I'm just, but I just the the process that you guys have followed, um, and in the short time, like I mean, I think I've known you for um, I'm going to say 5 years, 6 years, 5 or 6 years now. And like, just even like the growth and the how far you've taken your business. And it's so inspiring. But what's equally as inspiring is, or actually more inspiring to me, is not just what you've done with the business, but how you've been able to manage. You didn't have, when we first met, I remember having conversations about the struggle with kids and the balance, and it was it wasn't there. And so um that being able to really explore that and grow inside of that, I think has been phenomenal. And to just watch it, when I saw you and your sister talking at the conference, which was totally like, it was like complete happenstance. We happened to be at the conference attending, and you're up there talking. I text to Neil and I'm like, holy shit, Rebecca and Mandy are here. And it was just, and I just stood and watched you guys speak. And it's just, it's so inspiring to see what you guys have done as women in business, as parents, as wives, as and just really legit have followed this path of mastery to kind of get everything that like just to suck the marrow out of life. And it's just it's so inspiring. um
thank you so
no, you're
much,
welcome. I
Dwayne.
do have one last question. My question is, what is your one piece of advice? And I'll say in business, maybe I'll put it down to two. Maybe I'll put it down to two questions. What's your one piece of advice in business? And then what's your one piece of advice for women who are either in business or interested in getting into a business or wanting more out of their life, um, considering a path that is different than what they're currently following? I'm curious on both those sides.
From a business perspective, I would say that if you're on the entrepreneurial journey and you want to start something, I would say that you should be doing something from the heart. For me, I think what's contributed to where we are today is that I love doing what I'm doing and we don't outsource that part of the company. And the same goes for Mandy. We don't hire any chefs. Like she does it. We both do what we do best because we love what we're doing. And I think if you're creating an equation and you're having to hire people to make that dream come true, that's when the authenticity gets lost. So I would say find something that you love and do it really, really well, and they will come. um, and I would say for women in business, you can do it all. You can really do it all. That we're superhuman, and if anything, babies only make you stronger in your journey to achieve success. That's been my personal experience.
It's great advice. Very great advice. Rebecca, I mean, I can't thank you enough. Uh, how can people find you guys? Do you want to talk about your book? And then you're soon coming to Vancouver. But maybe you could just share some contact info.
Yeah, so we are actually opening up another location in Toronto and Yonge and Eglinton in the spring. We're really excited about, and we're opening up in Ottawa in the spring as well. I can't say the location also right now, but Ottawa is coming and another location in Toronto. And you can find lots of information on our website at www.mandys.ca. We also have an Instagram handle. You can find everything on our website, like our Insta's on there. We also wrote 2 great cookbooks, and um, even if you don't like cooking, they're really pretty, as I was mentioning, as coffee table books, and they're really good gifts. Just saying. And you can find them on our
Oh, and you
website.
have
And
salads. You have salad
yeah,
dressings too, don't you? That I forgot about that. Yeah,
yeah, we do. We were doing wholesale, yeah, all over the place, which is really fun.
and
Yeah, we do all of our dressings and marinades, and we sell our bowls that are coming out. They're gorgeous customized bowls that we're doing for the holidays that we'll be launching very soon, which I'm very
did
excited
you
about.
probably design them?
I
That's
did
good.
the bowls.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, are those online that you sell them, or do you sell them through third party, or
They're all on
all
our
on the website?
website. They're actually coming beginning of November. So now, like next week, they're going to be on
Okay.
our website. They're
And what
very
about your
cool.
salad dressings? Like, are they in any chain restaurant or chain grocery stores, or?
Yeah, our salad dressings are across. We're in over 1,500 doors across Canada, 1,500 like retailers. So you can kind of find us in most places. Yeah, all the way east to west Canada.
Yeah, see, I feel like we should have. I completely gapped on that because I was so focused on, well, you and the
Oh, don't
restaurants.
worry.
But I mean, that's a whole nother. When did you decide to get into that business? And
That started probably like 5, 6 years
so
ago.
just before COVID, 2019.
Yep. Yep. That's a super fun part of the business too. If anybody wants information on CPG, you can reach out.
Amazing. Rebecca, thank you first of all for your time. I know that, and we're not that we're trying to speed this up. I think it's been an amazing conversation, but your kids are coming home in about 5 or 6 minutes, and which I would actually, it'd be great to see them run onto the podcast, and it just shows how much of a involved mother you are. It was like the first thing that you mentioned when we were talking before we went live, and so I just want to express my uh, like sincere gratitude for being on the show and taking the time, but also just by you and your sister forging as leaders, in women in business. This is like it's such a cool thing you guys are doing, and I'm just loving it. I'm a huge fan. I'm always a huge fan. I know we don't talk a whole lot and very often, but you're often on my mind, and miss you lots, and say hi to Vince for me. And I just wish you all the best in the future.
Thank you so much, Dwayne. And thank you very much for having me. You're always so easy to talk to and always an inspiration. And you are a mentor. You've always been, you were I don't know if we could talk about a business organization that you were the reason why I joined. So, and I'm forever
Well,
grateful to you for that conversation.
um, I'm
Yeah,
forever grateful that you joined and we got to
being
know each other
yeah.
because I honestly, you're a gift. So thank you. I appreciate
Thanks,
you,
Dwayne.
kiddo. And yeah, so thank you again for being here, guys. Get out to Mandy's Salads and enjoy the product, enjoy the atmosphere. You're gonna love it. It's a phenomenal place to be. And so I can't express enough. If you're in Toronto, in Montreal, it's definitely a place you want to be. But thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being so open and honest and heartfelt about your journey. It's just inspiring as hell. All right.
Thanks, Dwayne.
Bless you, kiddo. Thank you so much.
You too.
Bye, guys.